Hey guys, hope all of you are doing fine. This is the part 16 of the Being Reborn in Marvel with Gamer's ability. Marvel Gamer Part 16. Thanos POV. A rumor had spread around the universe a few weeks ago, about a being who knew where to find one of the Infinity Stones, one no one had in possession. Rumors like this weren't new, their validity, on the other hand, that was another matter altogether. Lies were a common occurrence in the universe, a nuisance I had learned to live with. After all, the more you are lied to, the easier it becomes to see through the falsehoods of others. I had been lied to a lot. I had learned a lot. I had a mission that required me to be more than I was, to do what no one else was willing to do. The universe was in suffering, it cried for salvation, it cried for release, as the ever-expanding threat of life ate away the finite resources within. They all knew it. Everyone was aware of this, some to a bigger extent than others. Everyone simply ignored it. Why worry about tomorrow's problem? That was their mindset. They all act when it is already too late. They call me mad for giving them a solution, they call me a monster, demon, and more, but even when I don't intervene, even when I don't dirty my hands with their blood giving them salvation, they all go down the path I offered, only that when they do, it's already too late to make a difference. They killed for nothing, their sacrifice is pointless. Only when they were suffering, is when they would understand me. I would fix that. I had to. No one else would. It was my calling. A grim one, but mine nonetheless. Sire, are you sure you wish to go to that planet personally? Ebony asked, bowing as he did so. I do, not now, but soon, I nodded. Part of my duty, my mission, was revealing the truths and lies about the stones, only then, I would find them all. I must apologize for my insolence, but why not send one of us? There is no need to sully your hands, Ebony replied, keeping his head down. I understand your concern, I replied, my eyes firmly gazing at the Mind Stone, but this is something I would like to do. Then your will shall be done, Ebony replied. As hard as this mission was, I wasn't truly alone. Worry not, more, when the time comes, you will accompany me, I added, a small smile on my face. It would be my honor, Ebony replied. Any update on the other stones? I asked, changing the subject. None, sire, but soon, we will unveil the mystery behind it, and claim what is rightfully yours, Ebony assured me, his tone full of confidence and admiration. Very well, I replied, wondering when my mission would end, when I would be allowed to simply live, instead of leading a life without the weights I have. I guess, as with everything, only time would tell. Ego the Living Planet POV. Things were changing a lot, and I didn't like it. The Celestials were moving, breaking out of their normal patterns they had kept for eons, and that had me on an edge because whatever had them like that, was nothing small. I had no idea what could have possibly gotten such a reaction from them. But whatever it was of a universal scale. Threatening to break their precious balance. I needed to know what had them like that. If I had no idea what was to come, I would not be prepared to deal with it, and chances were not something I enjoyed taking, especially not on this scale. Obviously enough, asking them was out of the question. But that wasn't to say I couldn't investigate the enigma myself before drawing my conclusions. All I knew was that their predictable behavior had drastically changed after the emergence of a new celestial, the one sleeping within Earth's crust. What vexed me was how that celestial had managed to emerge without destroying the planet. I guess I would only find out if I went back to Earth to investigate the matter myself, or at least I would get a better understanding of it, I guess I will see. Loki Odinson POV. If I thought I hated Alex before, I was unbelievably wrong. I hated him now with the passion of 1,000 suns, no, 2,000 suns. I was a god, the prince of mischief himself. And yet, here I was, drinking tea with the spawn of the man I hated. In the body of a child, totally powerless. More sugar on your tea? Emily asked. 2 please, I nodded, moving my cup towards her to facilitate her work. What about you, Hella? Emily asked, turning to Hella. I fine as it is, Hella replied, taking a sip of her tea. He would pay for this humiliation. Want some biscuits, Loki, Hella? Emily asked, smiling. He would pay after the biscuits. 2 please, I nodded. 4, Hella replied. What about some cake? I baked one today, Emily added, looking at us. The child would live. Her father would not. All right, I'll be right back. Emily smiled, skipping towards the kitchen. You will regret planning anything, Hella smirked, turning to face me the moment Emily left. I have no idea what you mean, I replied, taking a sip of my tea. I know that look, even a blind man would see right through you. Hella rolled her eyes. He's far beyond you now, beyond me, beyond Thor. You have a better chance of teaching Thor manners than of defeating Alex. I snorted. I doubt my chances are that low, teaching Thor manners, ha. That was beyond anyone's power. You will see, Hella chuckled. I rolled my eyes, and before I could reply or say anything, Emily walked through the door, holding a plate with biscuits and one with a scrumptious-looking cake. I'm back, she happily exclaimed, setting the food on the table. Yes, the child would live. Do you think Miss Frigga would like some cake? Emily asked while serving the food. During this time, I have seen her eat more than her body weight twice a day, I snorted. I believe if you offer her a couch with mustard on it, she would eat it. Emily giggled, that's mean. Well, we aren't here for our exemplar behavior, are we not? I grinned. Ha, she's good, Hella muttered, looking between Emily and me. I wonder what she meant by that. If she was referring to her cooking skills, then yes, she was the paragon of a chef, one deserving of having a god eating her food. Hella is right, take pride in your skills, after all, no one else will, I stated with a bitter tone. That's not true, Dad is proud of me, and so is Nat, and Uncle Bucky, and Uncle Thor, and Sif. Emily beamed at me. Alex Walker POV. I yawned as I pushed the covers of the bed off, stretching my arms both ways as a notification popped in front of my tired eyes. Ego, the living planet is approaching Earth. I blinked, taking a deep breath, before deciding to go to the kitchen to get a cup of coffee. Walking out of the room, I encountered Bucky walking towards the kitchen as well, who upon seeing me, smiled. Good morning, he greeted, as we both made our way to the kitchen, talking about random things, most of them having to do with the girls and their shenanigans. Anything new? Bucky asked, putting some freshly grinded coffee beans to brew on a golden Asgardian pot. I paused for a moment, tapping the kitchen counter with my fingers for a few brief moments before replying. Not much really, I replied. Sure, Ego was coming, but he wasn't something I considered a big occurrence in my life, at most a 10-minute nuisance. I got a date, Bucky grinned, turning around as he took a seat, letting the coffee brew unsupervised for a few moments. I blinked, letting the information sink in before beaming at him with a bright smile. Who's the lucky gal? I urged as Bucky chuckled under his breath. A friend of Sif's, Astrid does. Bucky replied. Good for you, man, I smiled, teleporting beside him to give him a hug. We are going out tomorrow night, to a show in the arena, Sif apparently already taught her how human dates differ from theirs. Bucky chuckled, as I teleported back to my seat. I'm glad I nodded, before asking, do you need money or something? Bucky snorted, rolling his eyes, you already pay me, a lot, or have you forgotten? Oh right, he had a salary, I had forgotten, but did I ever give him an Asgardian salary? But, human currency is useless here. True, but I also get paid in Asgardian coin. By you. Bucky deadpanned, you really need an assistance, at this pace someone will screw you over. I rolled my eyes, who would dare? I challenged with a grin, seriously, I wanted to see the man or woman with the massively pendulous balls to try and steal from me. I might even spare them the punishment just for how utterly crazy they would have to be to do that. Good point. Bucky chuckled, but still, you need an assistant, to keep your schedule and mind clear. He had a point, maybe it was time to bring Projector.I back. I mean, I had the template for Ultron and Jarvis ready to be used. You might be into something. I nodded. I mean, if Ultron and Jarvis operated like my golems, I would be able to funnel some of my responsibilities to them. That way, I would not need to be checking on everything at all moments, I could just delegate to them. I am always Bucky replied, turning back to face the coffee pot. Ha! Sometimes, but enough about that. I chuckled, checking on Ego, who was, according to my map, 1 hour away. So, any plans for today? Bucky asked, grabbing the steaming hot pot with his metal, before serving the coffee in 2 cups. I hummed for a brief moment. Well, I was planning on watching TV with the girls, after destroying a planet, but beyond that, not much. Bucky eyed me for a moment, giving me a look that said, really? When I asked if there was anything new, that bit of information would have been great. What? But me hanging out with the girls is nothing new. I frowned. Hanging out with the are you fucking with me? Bucky asked, putting my cup of coffee in front of me. I have no idea what you mean. I shook my head, before snorting a laugh out. Oh, you mean the planet thing, right? That's new I guess, but nothing important to be honest. Nothing important. Bucky sighed, I deserve this. Really, this is what happens when you hang out with people who can sneeze civilizations out, and whatever category Thor fits in, instead of having normal friends. I chuckled, hey, it's not that bad. Sure, a man's every Monday, destroying a planet. Bucky rolled his eyes at me. But really, would you change us for anything? I winked. I would sell Thor for a penny. No, scratch that. I would someone my entire savings to take Thor away. Bucky replied with a grin, before taking a deep breath. But honestly, no, I would not change a thing. After Hydra, I never thought I would enjoy life again. But you fuckers changed that. Sure, my life is crazy now, but what's life without a bit of crazy? Amen to that. I nodded, taking a sip of my coffee, noticing it needed some sugar. So, about the planet thing, what's going on? Bucky asked as I apparated the sugar. Well, there's a living planet, who is currently on his way to Earth, I replied while putting 2 teaspoons of sugar in my coffee. Living planet, you mean in a philosophical way, or literal? Bucky asked, frowning as I put 2 more teaspoons of sugar into my coffee. Literal, the planet is sentient and shit, but it's not really a planet purse, it's a brain that made a planet around itself to protect his, well, everything, I replied, adding 2 more of sugar. Why don't you drink the sugar instead? Bucky commented. Funny, I replied, taking a sip of my sugar with coffee. Back to the topic, did you say a brain? Bucky inquired. Yep. I miss the days the only problem we had were Nazis. Bucky groaned, each enemy is weirder than the last. He had a point, when was the last time I fought someone with a gun? I can't even remember. Well, shit happens, what can you do about it? I shrugged. I suppose Bucky chuckled. By the way, Emily has a play date today, and you are invited, her new friend, Vest, and her. He paused, his eyes turning dark. Dad, are coming. That was a long pause. Is the dad something I should worry about? Yes. Bucky replied almost as if whispering. I frowned even more. Why? He said he didn't do it, but I'm almost positive he's the one responsible, Bucky hissed. Did what? I asked. This, Bucky sighed, showing me his metal arm. I looked at his arm, seeing nothing strange. Before eyeing him, Bucky, are you going senile? Not my arm, you dumb fuck, Bucky shot back. Damn, he's sensitive about whatever Vest's dad did. Then what? I asked, tilting my head. Press the new button, Bucky replied. New button? What does he? Oh shit, there's a button there. I don't recall my design having a button, I replied. Indeed, now press the button, Bucky sighed. Okay. I nodded, feeling like Bucky was setting me for a prank. But fuck it, here goes nothing. Confused and hesitant, I pressed the button, and immediately after, a song started to play out. Hi, Barbie. Hi, Ken. Do you wanna go for a ride? Sure, Ken. Jump in. I'm a Barbie girl in the Barbie world. Life in plastic, it's fantastic. You can brush my hair, undress me everywhere. Imagination, life is your creation. Come on, Barbie, let's go party. I'm a Barbie girl in the Barbie world. Life in plastic, it's fantastic. You can brush my hair, undress me everywhere. Imagination, life is your creation. What in the actual fuck? Barbie girl. Needless to say, this needed some investigation, but for now, I would do what any man in my situation would have done, laugh. So, without a care for the world, I wheezed my ass out. I teleported to Ego's main body, as his avatar flew to Earth. I knew the moment I made contact with his real body, his avatar would dispel. After all, it was all a matter of concentration. If Ego felt he was in danger, he wouldn't have the mind to keep an avatar and focus on whatever was attacking his body. Floating a few 100,000 miles away from his main body, as far as the moon would be from the Earth, I inspected his body in detail. He was powerful, yet painfully weak. It was a weird mix to see. His weakness was what made him powerful, a lone brain, without a body to protect it from harm. It would have been almost sad if Ego wasn't a sociopath to the letter. I sighed, opening my map to check on his avatar, and sure enough, his avatar was still on its way to Earth. Meaning Ego was yet to become aware of my presence above him. Good. This gave me time to evaluate the situation. As far as fighting him, I wasn't troubled at all. He was not only weaker than me, but his body made it so, that even if he were to be stronger than me, I would still come out triumphant. No, what I wanted to assess was another matter altogether, and that matter was: would killing him be actually worth it? Not that his life had any value whatsoever, no, far from it. His life was as valuable as a pile of trash, but his power, on the other hand, his power was certainly valuable. My conundrum was simple: was I to kill him, and let his cosmic power go to waste, or was I to consume him, as I had done with Tiamat, and the magical beasts at Cagliostro's library? The conundrum itself wasn't a moral one. I was far past those inner debates about the morality of ending a life. No, this was more a debate or whether I didn't mind or not getting an aspect of his personality. Sure, any changes I didn't embrace would eventually fade away, leaving nothing but a sour taste in my mouth. But, considering the character, I had to weigh the cons very carefully. It would help me against null eyesight, at the end of the end, that was my main problem, after all, and if eating ego would help me deal with that, then I suppose dealing with a bit of sociopathy wasn't that bad, considering it was a temporary arrangement. Well, time to say hi, I added as I descended towards ego at breaking speed, landing on his body within a second or two. Immediately after landed, his avatar faded, leaving a very alert ego moving things around his body, in a futile attempt to fight me, I reckoned. It wouldn't kill you to say hi, I said, looking around the place. For a show of a planet, a case filled with nothing, he had done an amazing job making this place look like a real planet. As I observed his craft carefully, an avatar of his being formed in front of me, frowning as he asked, "Who are you?" "Alex," I replied, paying him little to no attention. I was otherwise too absorbed seeing how he had formed the animals from cosmic power. His handicraft was impeccable. "Is that supposed to tell me something?" Ego asked, taking a few steps toward me. "No, not really," I replied, turning to face him with a smile. "I doubt you have heard of me, I mean, you haven't been on Earth for a bit, so, yeah." Great Ego rolled his eyes, as the earth beneath me caved, leaving me in a falling state. It didn't take me long to figure out that he intended to crush me. He was either very optimistic, or dumb, had he not realized the power I had within me. I mean, I wasn't actively trying to hide my cosmic power, he should have felt it. Sighing, I teleported to his real body, his brain with a simple thought, realizing any chat with him would bring nothing but headaches. "So this is the real you," I hummed, my face centimeters away from the lone brain known as ego. "Don't touch that!" a voice shouted in a state of panic coming from behind me. "Didn't want to, but now, I kind of do," I replied, turning around to see a newly formed avatar staring at me, in utter fear. I smirked viciously. He had finally noticed. Took him long enough. "We can talk about this, I'm sure we can work something out," Ego pleaded, looking into my eyes all while he started to form multiple things around me. I couldn't see those things, but I could feel the cosmic energy around shifting, so it wasn't hard to add things up. "Sure, all I want is your power, can you give me that?" I smiled, pretending to go along. "Yes, whatever your wish, I can grant it," Ego nodded, smiling as without any warning hundreds of golden spears protruded from the walls around his brain, attacking me from every conceivable direction. They did no damage. "Really, you have the power to control atoms, and you attack me with spears? The most basic weapon of all." I sighed, erasing the spears away with a pulse of cosmic energy that turned every single spear into dust. "Please, you don't have to do this." Ego, seeing his plan, if we can call that plan, not work, decided to beg as I sighed at the sight. "I would feel bad if your kill count and morals didn't make Hitler look like an okay example for a growing kid," I smiled, creating the runic circle necessary for the ritual to absorb him. "Who are you to judge? Those who I have killed are sheep, our food you consumed to emerge. Why is it wrong when I do it? But okay when you do it?" Ego roared, his brain turning red from the usual shade of blue. "Oh," I chuckled, realizing his confusion. "I see your confusion, so before ending you, allow me to clarify, I didn't emerge, nor I consumed any sheep, as you speak, but don't be confused, I have consumed, but not sheep, wolves, and you, my friend, just happen to be a wolf, and I just happen to be hungry." What do you mean by wolves?" "No, you can't mean," Ego muttered, his avatar taking a few steps back in horrified realization. "I was just using your own metaphor. If sheep are mortals in this, then well, wolves had to be the Celestials," I smiled. No, this can't be. They wouldn't allow it. Ego barked, making the entire planet shake. Don't worry, it's not like it concerns you anymore, I replied, starting the ritual. The time for talks was over. Ritual started. I pushed Ego into a battle of the minds, where he struggled in utter dread for his life, for his individuality, for everything he ever held dear, himself. Tragically for him, all this did was delay the inevitable by a few seconds or so. Little by little, his power, his memories, everything that made Ego, was making mine. Please? Ego pleaded, his screams echoing across my mind as he tried to run away from what was a mental battleground without escape, without an exit, not until one of us ceased to be. The more you fight it, the more pain you will bring upon you, I replied, staring at him with a cold-blooded indifference. The more his essence became mine, the less pity I felt for the monster in front of me. His crimes were unforgivable. Everything he did in his life was heinous, one atrocious act after the other. Never regretting a single thing, there wasn't a grain of remorse in him, a grain of pity for his victims, for the toys as he called them that he used for his amusement. Please? I can't cease to exist, I need to change the cosmos. A monster, devoid of all emotions, yet capable of feeling fear. How utterly pathetic. No one will ever remember you, I spat, finally overpowering his will as I opened my eyes into the real world, the echoes of his last scream, resonating in my head, one last time. Stats. Stats. Name equals Alex Walker. Race equals unknown / celestial. Title equals the gamer. Occupation equals Prince of Asgard. Ranking equals 97th. Level equals 1995. EXP equals 0% / 100%. HP equals 314,645,000 / 314,645,000. MP equals 407,740,000 / 407,740,000. STR equals 560,070, plus 224,028, equals 784,098. VIT equals 629,290. Definite equals 321,447. DEX equals 479,325. Int equals 815,480. Char equals 256,625. Wiz equals 615,478. Will equals 198,215. Per equals 176,456. LUK equals 10,000. Stat points equals 23,400. Money, 43,065,132,212.30 Only 195 levels. Not bad, but I expected more. It also seemed like absorbing him had only increased certain stats by a lot, like int, wiz, char and LUK, but left the rest without much modification. Beggars can't be choosers. Time to go back. I had a playdate to attend to, I was already late as it was. I teleported back to Asgard, changing into a moral casual attire before going over Emily's room. Are you ready, baby girl? I asked, knocking on her door. Yes. Without waiting another second, Emily replied, practically kicking the door open in excitement. I chuckled, patting her on the head. Well, lead the way then, I have no idea where we are going. To the park. Emily replied, grabbing a hold of my hand before tugging me to follow her, which I did. So, tell me more about Vest and Mr. Ara, I asked. Something about all of this had me intrigued. Maybe it was the prank of Bucky's arm, but I just felt there was something more to this than meets the eye. Yet, I didn't feel like I should be on alert, which I suppose was the weirdest thing about the situation. Well, Vest is my best friend, she likes cooking, as you already know, Emily giggled, before continuing. Her dad is a weird man, not a bad weird, more like a cartoonish weird, if that makes any sense. Cartoonish weird? What do you mean by that? I asked with a small chuckle, wondering what she meant. Well, Emily mused at the question, trying to find the right words to word it out. You know Bugs Bunny, right? Did I know about Bugs Bunny? I grew up with him, and indoctrinated my kids to love him. Of course, childhood idol, I nodded. He's like him, Emily replied. Oh, cartoonish weird, I see, that explains the prank with Bucky. Oh. Yep, Emily giggled, as she continued to lead me towards the park. We arrived at the park before Mr. Ara and his daughter, Vest, arrived, so with nothing to do, I took the time and played with Emily as we waited for them to arrive. For a bit, we played hide and seek, where Emily made me promise I would not use my map to find her. I understood her concern about me cheating that way. My ability makes hide and seek pointless, if I so desire to use it. After being thoroughly defeated by Emily and her superior hiding skills, we both sat on the swings and started using them, while talking about nothing in particular, silly stuff for the most part. We stayed like this for a good while, until 2 green dots appeared on my map. So sorry. We didn't mean to be late. The voice of a girl around Emily's age said as I turned around to face her. Beside her, there was a man, smiling as he walked towards us, carrying a box of sweets with a delectable aroma that basically floated out of the box. Vest Fokies, ARA Fokies. I took the wrong turn, my deepest apologies, Mr. Ara chuckled, scratching the back of his head. I frowned, their names floating above their heads, they had no levels, nothing but their names. I understand, I replied, deciding that at least for now, I would play it safe, at least until I confirmed where their power level was placed. Before that, I had to prevent unnecessary confrontations. Vest. Emily smiled, jumping out of the swing, rushing to hug her friend, who smiled at the sight in a loving manner. How have you been? Vest, who was currently being hugged blue by Emily, asked. Good, nothing new really, Emily replied, breaking off the hug while doing so. Oh, I see, Vest nodded, before turning her gaze towards me, and immediately I realized that something about her burning-looking eyes, about the way she looked at me, made me feel warm. It was strange, mystifying even. Hi, Mr. Walker, Vest smiled, coming towards me, her right hand extended expecting a handshake. Hi, I smiled in kind, taking her hand. Well girls, go and play, Mr. Walker and we'll be here in case any of you need us, probably eating what I brought in the box, Mr. Ara chuckled, as Vest gave him a look I couldn't quite read. Okay, have fun, Daddy. Emily nodded, grabbing Vest's hand before running into the park. Hi, Mr. Ara waved. Hi, I replied, wondering how this would go. The play date ended, and I didn't know what to think. Those two were strange, yet I didn't feel particularly threatened by them, which on its own was weird. They were a mystery, even after using my powers to try and find some sort of information, I found nothing, but what was clearly a fabricated bio, like those you would find in role-playing games. Helping with Mr. Ara didn't help either. At first, I tried to talk with him, without making my intentions clear. But it was no to avail. Everything for that man was a game, an opportunity to do something irritatingly silly. I now understood what Emily meant by cartoonish. But even after all this, I found myself lowering my guard against him. I guess he was simply annoying, and annoying doesn't mean inherently bad. Maybe this is one of those parental situations where I have to hang out with people I clearly don't like for the sake of Emily's social life. No. That was too harsh for them. I didn't hate them or anything. Vest seemed like a very good friend for Em, and was a contrast compared to her father in terms of behavior, and yes, Mr. Ara gave an array of mixed emotions, but none were bad. Most of them were simply based in my confusion. What really bothered me the most was the fact they had no levels. I mean, was that a new thing? Even the Beyonder had some questions marks for his level, indicating his level was way above mine. But them, nothing, just their names. Perhaps they came from a different universe, but that wouldn't explain why they didn't have levels. Enough, I sighed. I had been wasting enough time as it is with this. If they are a threat, that for some reason I am sure they are not, I will deal with them accordingly. In the meantime, I have things to do. Null wasn't going to kill himself. Taking a deep breath, I opened a portal to my office, but, before I could take a single step forward, I saw something approaching, nearing me by the second at an alarming speed, while shouting, "Brew there!" I sighed, bracing for the impact while wondering if my days would always be like this, with Thor doing Thor stuff. Crashing against me at Mach 8, the floor beneath us caved, crumbling into pieces as Thor blasted me with his body a few dozen floors down. My bad, brother. I was training a new move, but pressed the wrong button. Thor chuckled, standing up as he dusted his armor. Meanwhile, I laid on the floor, completely unharmed, but currently questioning my life choices. I blinked, rewinding inside my mind what he had just said. Pressed the wrong button. The fuck were you doing? Oh, I said that. My bad, must be the terrible concussion I have. Everything smells and tastes like copper right now, but... Thor smiled, stopping me before I could talk. I put a band-aid on my head, so don't worry. He tried to heal a concussion with a band-aid. What kind of idiot he got a ton of knowledge from the fucking tree, and well, where did that all go? No, Alex, focus, one problem at a time, heal the idiot first, scold him later. Sighing, I stood up from the ground, pressing my hand against his head, using heal. Ah, that's much better. I knew the band-aid was right about to kick in. Thor smiled, giving me a hug. First I smiled, kicking him on the knee with enough strength to bring him down. What were you doing healing a concussion with a band-aid? Second, please tell you no, you can't heal a concussion with a band-aid. And third, what in the fuck were you doing to get injured in the first place? You are basically indestructible. Well, answering your questions in order, the band-aid was part of a loot. I mean, an orc challenged me to a fight, I electrocuted him to ashes, and in the middle of it all, there was a band-aid, so, yeah, I used that like you use your potions. Thor chuckled, scratching the back of his head as one of my eyes twitched, but, I guess it was no magical item, at least not like ones your monster drop, and, yes, I know a band-aid doesn't cure a concussion, obviously you need to. I glared at him. I'm joking, Thor chuckled. As for your last question, well, I was training a new form of mine. I call it the Super Duper Thor. The name is a work in progress. A new form? I asked, unsure what to think of that. Yes, a transformation, where I, the mightiest brother, uncle, god, king, lover, hairkeeper, and biggest shareholder of Thoriel, my personal brand of shampoo, Get access to power beyond my imagination. Thor nodded, as I used great heal on him. I mean, there had to be something in there that heal didn't heal. Maybe holy heal next if great heal doesn't work. If none of that works, I might need to use the stones. Brother, stop healing me, I'm fine. Thor protested. That's debatable. Today you are being more Thor-like than usual. Too Thor-like, I muttered, narrowing my eyes. This will end poorly. Thor chuckled. Bah, I'm just happy. If I perfect this transformation, name pending, I will be able to fight by your side. He grinned. I chuckled. But, how did you get hurt then? Oh, well, I exploded after losing control of the transformation, and well, the explosion sent me flying towards you, Thor replied, giving me a small shrug. How about you train that transformation in a place where you can't hurt others? I mean, had it not been me, you would have made a paste of whoever you had landed on, I said. Very good point, Thor nodded. In my defense though, I didn't know I could explode, but granted, I am mighty, I should have expected it. He grinned. As I prepared for Null's awakening, a notification popped into my system, informing me that Thanos and his army were on their way to the abandoned planet whose coordinates I had scattered through all of space to manipulate the purple giant into collecting the stone for me. I smiled, opening my map. From what I saw on it, Thanos and his army would arrive at the planet in an hour and 10 minutes. Plenty of time to prepare. Smile on my face, I teleported to the planet, where I began to create certain decorations for the Titan's arrival. Nothing out of the ordinary, just a few small details to set the mood. A temple, where I would wait for him. Traces of a past civilization that had ended because of their hubris, to connect with his past and current motives, and the occasional monument with ancient art telling the story of the stones. And a spell or two, to make the planet look and feel more mysterious, by making a deep mist surrounding the location he was to visit, one that would only open to him, to make him feel like the chosen one. I feel like I'm missing something. The question was, what? Oh, right, a fake prophecy, narrated by the paintings or writing of a lost civilization. Nothing sells a point more than a prophecy of a promised champion. And Thanos believed himself to be one. I still feel I'm forgetting about something. That's right, the Red Skull. I can't have him ruining my convoluted plan by possibly telling Thanos he was being lied to. Time to delete him, I nodded, using erasure on him, effectively ending his weird immortal existence. With that done, the only thing left to do was wait. Thanos POV. I was about to arrive at the planet where the rumors of one of the stones had begun. I had no idea what I would encounter there. A lie. A truth. Both perhaps. I mused at that thought for hours, as the ships coursed through the cosmos, nearing our destination. Sire, we have arrived, Moore announced, pointing at the screen. Any information on the planet? I asked, leaning towards the screen a bit. None, Sire, Moore replied, frowning. I sighed. I expected as much. This sector of the universe was nothing but an echo of the past. Planets that once had life, turned to nothing, leaving their story, their achievements to rot, to be forgotten. Prepare for landing, I ordered. I knew there was a possibility of this being a trap. Many wanted my head, and a desolate planet was the best place to do what they so desperately sought for. But for my mission, I would take the risk. As you wish, Moore nodded. Alex Walker POV. I smiled, seeing as Thanos and his army landed on the planet. It was showtime. Grinning, I changed my form to that of an old alien. In short, I had changed my appearance to look like Yoda, down to his clothes and lightsaber. Okay, I have 5 minutes at most to prepare my speech, I muttered, modulating my voice to sound like Yoda, and my speech pattern, to seal the deal. Hum. Not yet. Hum. Almost. Hum. Become powerful, you have the dark side in you, I sense. Good, that will do. Thanos POV. I followed the path that almost seemed laid out for me, seeing the planet and witnessing the story it told. It reminded me of my own planet, of the destruction it came after they refused to listen to me. It was uncanny, almost perturbing. I pitied those who had lived here, because I knew the pain they had gone through. I would stop that pain from ever happening ever again. Sire Moore said, pointing ahead. A thick mist had appeared out of nowhere, covering the entire place. It's solid, Moore commented, touching the mist. I did the same, but unlike Moore, the mist parted at my touch, clearing as if obeying my will. Follow me, I ordered Moore and my soldiers. Something about this felt off, but it was clear, only I could lead the way now, regardless of the reason behind it. As you command, Sire Moore bowed, getting behind me as I cleared the way, revealing things that were not there before, monuments that seemed as old if not more than some galaxies. This is why I must do what I have set out to do, I said, looking around. Just how many planets had fallen to this? To a lifeless rock, with their history rotting beneath the moth. Your mission is holy, Sire Moore bowed. It wasn't. It was simply a necessary evil. A sin, for the Sake of the future. As I pondered over those thoughts, the sounds of someone approaching snapped me out of my long reverie. As an alien I had never seen before, walked into view, breaking the mist by simply walking towards me. The alien in question was small in size, roughly comparable to that of a child, with green skin, large eyes, long pointed ears, and 2 3-fingered hands that ended in claws. Finally arrived, you have, the alien smiled, as Moore took a step forward. Hear me and rejoice. You have had the privilege of being visited by the great Titan. On his holy wake, the universal scales tip toward balance because of his sacrifices. Smile, for you are about to become one of the children of Thanos, Moore recited with a smile on his face. Child. Too old for that I am. Home. The alien replied with a chuckle, making Moore frown in anger. But before he could do anything, I stepped in. Are you the one who has been spreading rumors about the Soul Stone? HRMMM. Yes, I am. Clear, the prophecy was waiting for you all this time. I have been. YRSSSSS. I looked into his eyes and asked, how can you be sure I am the savior you speak of? Cleared the mist, you have. YRSSS, only you the savior can be, he replied, turning around. Follow me you must, the answers you seek I have. I sighed, deciding that for now I would follow the strange creature. Thanos POV. I looked at the green creature in front of me as he smiled. Carry me to the top of the mountain you must. Part of your challenge it is, he said, moving his hand to point towards the mountain, his way of speaking broken, strange, or perhaps natural to his people, I really couldn't tell. You dare to order the GR, Moore began, but with a simple gesture of my hand, I silenced him. To show humility and kindness you have, he replied, chuckling under his breath. Easy this challenge is, the ones ahead, they are not. HRMMM. Very well, I nodded. For now, I would follow his rules, and play the game and see where it leads me. But, sire! Moore exclaimed. I will do what I must, Moore, I replied, giving him a look that said, do not question my choices. I humbly apologize, More bowed. Forgiven you are. YRSSSSS, the small alien replied, smiling towards More. What is your name, if I'm permitted to know? I asked, trying to gather any kind of information. Yoda, my name is. YRSSSS. Yoda, very well. I nodded, kneeling to his level, offering him a hand. Allow me, Yoda. Become powerful, you have the dark side in you, I sense. Hurry, we must, short the time we have it is. HRMMM. Yoda replied, jumping onto my shoulder before taking a seat. Where must we go? I asked. No, you will, when at the place we must be we arrive, he replied, as cryptically as possible. Very well, I nodded, following the path ahead. I continued walking for hours to no end, Yoda sitting on my shoulder, meditating. I could feel More glaring at him, but Yoda seemed unperturbed by that fact. In fact, he almost seemed amused at More's anger. Is this walk supposed to take us somewhere? More said, directing a light glare towards Yoda. Too impatient you are, revealed to you the truth will never be. YRSSSSS. Yoda replied, without even looking at More. Perhaps that was the test, patience. By this point I doubted this creature wanted to ambush me. Many opportunities had arisen, none had been taken. Needless to say, I still didn't discard the possibility of him being a liar, but by this point his intentions were clearly not hostile. I sighed, looking ahead to see a temple. Was that it? I couldn't tell. He said, I would know, but the temple didn't feel like the place where the truth was laid. Alex Walker POV. We just walked past the temple. The place where we were supposed to go. Fuck my life. I guess Thanos has high standards when it comes to mystical revelations. I guess I will create structures as we continue this walk, making shit as we go. Eventually he will have to stop. Thanos POV. I continued walking for hours to no end, passing several landmarks and majestic castles. Each one grander than the last, as if each one was competing to surpass the one a few miles behind it. But I still felt I had yet to find the right place. Too much about it, you think? Simple the choice is, Yoda said, giving me a friendly look, yet somehow I felt he was annoyed. You will show the great Thanos the respect he deserves, More replied, glaring at him for a moment before trying to use his telekinesis to push Yoda off my shoulder against wishes. However, before I could even intervene and punish More, I found myself staring in shock, as More was pushed from the ground, choking as an invisible force kept him in place. Small I am, the truth that is, that I am weak. However, that doesn't mean, Yoda replied in a dangerously cold tone, showing a power I didn't think him capable of. For a brief moment, Yoda held More in the air with nothing but a simple glance, choking More blue. I tried to speak, to move, but something kept me in place, paralyzed, in everything but thought. Yoda was frighteningly powerful. I was now sure, had he wanted to finish me, he would have from the beginning. He was never a threat, but we were making him one. Fun that was, but our journey we must continue, Yoda chuckled, releasing More and myself from his grasp. I apologize for his behavior, I replied, giving More a look. Realizing he was now fully aware Yoda was not to be trifled with. No, sire, it is I who must apologize. As one of the children of Thanos, I should have behaved, but I acted out of anger, More bowed, this time to Yoda, who smiled at the sight. I offer my life, for you to do as you please as a token of my regret. Necessary that is not, learned your lesson you have. Yoda replied, waving him off. I blinked, remembering his past words, that the trials ahead would be hard, and that only I would find the place. It all made sense now, The place was always within my grasp, for it was anywhere within the planet, as long as I was patient, and didn't let my preconceptions guide me. "We have arrived," I announced, without moving an inch from where we were. "We have. I mean, yes, arrived we have. HRMMM. I knew it. Mr. ARAPOV. Well, that was an interesting approach to the situation. What are you watching?" Vest asked. "Alex cosplaying as Yoda," I replied. "I have yet to see a Jedi joke in there, but it's a start. My young Padawan had much to learn." "Why though?" Vest asked, tilting her head. "Well, he's tricking a Titan into doing something for him," I replied, chuckling under my breath. History, no matter where, seemed to repeat itself. Déjà vu," Vest muttered. "Yep," I nodded, before jumping to my feet. "I'm bored, so I'm gonna spend some time with Bucky, he's my new best friend." "I'm pretty sure he hates you," Vest replied, rolling her eyes. "Nah, he loves me, he just loves playing opposite day, or whatever suits the narrative of my point. You pick," I chuckled, teleporting out of the room to spend some quality time with him. Alex Walker POV. After Thanos had finally decided to pick a place for me to tell him what he had to do, he left, leaving in a bitter state of mind. I mean, I had created no less than 40 over-the-top structures, and in the fucking end, he had decided to pick the middle of the room. I created 12 castles, and 18 skyscrapers. But, in the end, it didn't matter. As long as he was on his mission, I could deal with my disappointment. As to how he took the information about his mission, well, he took them particularly well. Sure, he didn't know he had to kill Gamera to get the stone, but he had understood the fact he had to go to the planet with her to get the stone. Only her. A fact Moore didn't like at all. So, as to avoid Moore fucking my plans by convincing Thanos I was a scammer of some sorts, I altered his memories, creating a version of him that would support my plan instead of fucking it up. I remember a time when such tricks were out of the question for me. I guess I have outgrown my morals. Anyway, with Thanos on the path I wanted him to be, I teleported back to my office. I still had much to do. Null was coming, and while I had done many things to prepare for him already, I was still extraordinarily underprepared. I had the armies to fight his, but that would not win me the war. I sighed, suddenly remembering something. A long time ago, I had acquired a crafting item that at the time I had no use for, a fragment of the universe before the bang, before the creation of the stones, meaning said fragment predated the current universe just like Null. Fragment of the cosmos, legendary crafting item. A piece of what was before the bang, elemental like the 6 aspects of the universe, but hollow, lacking a purpose. This can be used for crafting. I wonder if that can help me, I muttered, reading over the item's description. A new quest has been created equals the weapon of a god. With war drawing closer, you can feel the darkness lurking at every corner. As you feel the weight of everyone's lives lay upon your shoulders, it is more than clear you need a weapon worthy of a god, to guide those who oppose the old order of things. A weapon capable of opposing the god-killing monstrosity that is all black, Null's weapon, a weapon specifically forged to slay divine beings. Objectives equals craft a weapon of unmatched power using the fragment of cosmos within your possession. Rewards equals the weapon of a singularity. Failure equals possible death, broken fragment of the cosmos. It's been a while since I got a quest. A good one at that. I chuckled, reading over the quest one more time before sighing. Crafting a weapon, I guess the question now is, what do I want for a weapon? Unlike my Uru weapons, or vibranium/adamantium ones. My decision here was permanent. After all, I only had one fragment of the cosmos, legendary crafting item. So, I had to be absolutely sure when it came to my choice. Not only that, but I also had to consider what was the best weapon choice to fight Null. He had, all black, a weapon specifically forged to kill divine beings. I guess I could always reverse his own idea, by forging a weapon specifically to kill him. But that felt like a waste, not in the immediate time, but after I dealt with Null. Sure, he was the biggest threat as of the moment, stronger than me, and most of the universe, but in the big scheme of things, he was inconsequential, as I was. So this project had to serve a greater purpose than just defeating Null. I wanted a weapon with the power to aid me beyond my immediate problems. And that only made my quest to forge one, even harder. I chuckled at the thought, looking over the fragment of the cosmos, legendary crafting item. That laid in my hands. Perhaps I didn't have to choose. Why bound myself to a single weapon, a single style, a single approach with it, after all? The universe was ever changing, ever expanding, so why couldn't my weapon be just like that? I grinned. I liked the sound of that. A weapon without form, one ever adaptable, to fit any and all situations. I could work with that. Now the question was, what fundamental purpose would this weapon serve? Null created his weapon with the sole purpose to slay those who had disrupted the old order. The gods, the celestials, the divine beings and their creations intruding and shattering his perfect world of darkness. That was all Black's purpose, to be the end of everything in creation. That purpose made All Black stronger, the same way an attack with a name was stronger than one without one. Names, just like purposes, gave the weapon and attack, power and intent, one that made them vastly more powerful on a fundamental level. I guess it was because it gave them an identity, one bigger than just an attack or a simple weapon. I needed to find that before I crafted my weapon. I needed to find the name and purpose of it. A purpose beyond just being my weapon. And a name to identify that purpose. I had my work cut out for me, but I couldn't really complain. Nothing that was ever worth the trouble was easy to achieve, be it power, money, or love. All of it required work, hard work, one way or another. Sure, some had an easier path to some of those things. With some being born into money, like Tony Stark, and others being born into power like Tiamat. But regardless of how easy you had it from the start, there would be the day where you would have to work hard for something, be it love, power or something else. Emily Walker POV. At times, I hated being a kid. I wasn't blind, I could see Dad worrying like never before, and just like always, I was nothing but baggage. If I only were older, I could help him. If I only were older, he would confide in me. I knew it was silly to think like this, but it pained me seeing him like that. Pretending everything was okay just for me and Nat, smiling to avoid worrying anyone around. It made my heart ache, because I knew he was suffering, and I couldn't do anything about it. Are you okay? Vest asked in a soft tone. I am. I nodded, giving her a weak smile. Don't lie, Vest smiled, giving me a hug. You can count on me, for anything. I smiled. It was uncanny really. She had this presence that made me feel okay, no matter the situation. I'm worried about Dad, I sighed. I know something is coming, I can see it on his face, and I feel useless. I wish there was something I could do to help him, anything. Vest smiled, giving me a warm look. You being safe, it's all he needs, but I understand the sentiment. I know, I nodded, petting Goose as she came to the room, purring in an attempt to cheer me up. But I don't want to be safe. I don't want to be safe if that means Daddy will have to face everything alone. A valiant sentiment, Vest smiled, offering Goose a treat. But you have to understand, there is a time for everything. There will be a time where you will be able to help him in many ways. It's a part of growing up, leaving your parents' wings to fly right beside them. I liked the sound of that, flying beside Dad. I hope that time comes soon. Don't, you should be enjoying your time as a child, Vest chuckled. You talk as if you were older than me, I replied, rolling my eyes. I am, Vest winked. A few months at best, I chuckled. Older is older, Vest chuckled back. Enjoying my childhood, that sounds sweet and all, but I would trade all of it just to help Dad. I know Nat would too. As I mused over that thought, the entire room went dark, leaving me and Vest sitting on the floor, as Goose started to hiss in a mix of fear and anticipation. What happened? I muttered, creating a ball of light with eldritch magic, only for it to be immediately destroyed by an unknown force. You are his, aren't you? A mysterious voice whispered behind my ear, freezing me on the spot. The voice was deep and husky, having low tones that scraped like nails on a blackboard. Who are you? I managed to ask, shaking, not out of fear, but cold, unbearable cold. The voice chuckled, and for a moment, I felt as if something was moving around the room. I gave Vest a look, who unbeknownst to me had grabbed my hand, realizing I had to save her. She had no play in this. Right now. Nothing but a shade, biding my time, as the seal wears down. But once upon a time, child, I was the king of old, the embodiment of darkness, the lord of the abyss, the voice began, whispering, sounding thin and pained. And little by little, what had started as a whisper rose to a scream so high I had to cover my ears in pain. I am now the king in black. And your father will learn what it means to oppose me. So child, hope not ever to see heaven. For I have come to lead you to the other shore, into eternal darkness, into fire and into ice. As the monster screamed, I could feel something forming in front of me. I couldn't see it, but I didn't need to see it, to know what it was, a weapon, an instrument to end me. I refused to end like this. Vest behind me. I shouted, starting to create a shield around me with eldritch magic, using all of my power to fuel it. However, before that came to happen, Vest took a step forward, her hand stretching into the darkness, grabbing a hold of something, as a dark look dawned upon her face. Vest. I muttered in shock. For a second or two, she said nothing, simply staring into the darkness with a look I had never seen on her face before. After a moment, she smiled, turning to face me. Don't worry, everything will be all right. Before I could ask what she meant by that, she turned to face the darkness once again, and with a tone devoid of any emotion, she spoke in a language I had never heard before. Soon after she said that, a high-pitched scream of agony was heard, as the darkness around us dissolved like a mist, soon enough, returning things to normal. What was that? I asked, staring into Vest. A message, Vest smiled, turning around to face me. Now, if you don't mind, can we keep this a secret between us? Pretty please. I have to tell Dad about the attack, I replied. I know, I apologize for my bad wording. What I meant to ask was, to just, leave out my part, if possible. Of course, if you don't, I won't hold it against you, Vest requested with a bright smile, to which I nodded. She was strong, I could see it now, with but a touch of her hands, she had vanquished whatever had infiltrated my room with shocking ease. So for the moment, I would compromise as best as I could. She had saved my life, after all, so I would try to avoid telling anyone what she did, but if Dad asked, I would not lie. I will, but if Dad asks how in too much detail, I will tell the truth, I replied, hoping that she didn't get mad. She was my friend, and friends kept secrets, but I didn't like the idea of lying to my father, not a little bit. It's okay, you are a good child, as you should. Vest smiled, giving me a hug. Like I said, I won't hold it against you, not a single bit. I smiled, letting out a breath of relief I didn't know I had been holding. I will try my best to not say it though. That's all I ask. Vest nodded. But, how did you do that? I asked, tilting my head. One day, I'll show you. Vest winked, her reply making me pout. If I had that power, I could actually be of use for a change. Don't pout, I truly mean it. One day, I'll show you. Thanks for saving me, I sighed, giving her a small smile. No need to, Vest replied, kneeling to give the terrified goose another treat to calm her nerves. Alex Walker POV. As I tried to find what I was missing to craft my weapon, the one I intended to use to vanquish Null permanently, I felt something, a pulse of energy so dark, so vile, so horrendous on a fundamental level, that it sent an icy shiver down my spine, putting me in a state of alarm. In all my life, I had never felt something like that, something so vile, so putrid that it went beyond good or evil, entering a category of its own. Null, I muttered without realizing, opening my system in a rush to see if he had broken out of his seal. Only to confirm, he hadn't. Nonetheless, that pulse of energy had to be him. The question was, why would he put everyone on alert by doing so? To force action? To send a warning? I couldn't really know, and that scared me. I had to check where the pulse had ended, perhaps then I would get an answer. Rushing to check, I opened my map, putting the pulse on the search parameters, seeing it had stopped after scanning the 9 realms, which meant the girls. Somehow, someway, I felt something was amiss, with my first thought going over to the girls. If Null wanted to hurt me, to weaken me, they were his best shot as of now. Cursing under that realization, I summoned the girls to my office using a non-compliant spell, begging whoever could hear me for them to be okay. Working as intended, the spell summoned the girls in front of me, and at the sight of them, I started crying in relief. They were okay, he hadn't harmed them, they were okay, they were okay. Dad. Nat was the first to speak, approaching me with a look filled with worry. I said nothing, pulling her and Emily into a hug. They were okay, they were alive, and that's all that mattered. Dad, are you okay? Daddy, please answer. Nat asked, her tone soft, hugging me back. I couldn't answer, not verbally, so I simply nodded. Dad, we are okay, Emily said, her tiny arms hanging around my neck. I nodded, she was right, they were okay. No matter what happened, everything will be all right, Nat added, taking hold of one of my hands, delicately putting her face on it. I'm sorry, I managed to mutter, loud enough for them to hear. Never in my life I had been so scared, so vulnerable, so human. The thought of them being hurt pained me beyond anything I could possibly imagine. Those brief few seconds where I didn't know how they were, I felt weaker than ever before. Don't be, Nat replied. Vest stopped him. Dad, don't worry, Em muttered, while hanging around my neck. At this, I froze, taking what she had said, and dissecting it, as everything around me seemed to come to a full stop. Vest had stopped him. He had been here, and Emily had faced him. At this realization, I felt the color drain from my face, as a new sense of cold took over. Who? Nat asked, giving Em a look of concern. Someone named Null, Em replied. He had been here. He had targeted my daughters. Null had been here, and had tried to harm one of my. Had Vest not stopped him, I would have lost them. I would have realized what had happened too late. In a state of shock, I repeated those lines in my head, over and over again, almost like a mantra, as little my little, all that I was feeling, turned into a new feeling altogether, one of passionate wrath like I had never felt before in my life. He had dead. That fucking coward. I will kill him, I muttered, grinding my teeth. I would show him the meaning of true despair, and on my path, I will stop at nothing to end him, to see his suffering, and even if my soul stands in the way, I'll toss it aside. Dad, Nat and Em muttered at the same time. Don't worry girls, you won't hear of him ever again, I replied, staring at nothing in particular. He wanted to play that way. I would oblige him then, after all, I was anything but a bad player. You should not let your emotions cloud you. I blinked, feeling a warm hand touching my forehead, one that didn't belong to Nat or Em. Vest. Em muttered in shock, as Nat slowly moved her hand to her hip to get her knife. Don't, I said, giving Nat a kind look. Her reaction was the correct one when an unknown appeared in the room, but it was as of the moment, unnecessary. Don't let your emotions rule you. Feel them, embrace them, but don't let them take control. Vest smiled, giving me a warm look. Girls, leave, I said, my eyes on Vest. Nat and Em nodded, leaving the room, but not without giving Vest a look before leaving, Nat, one of suspicion, and Em one of worry. Who are you? I asked, once the girls were out of ear's reach. I'm done playing these games. Well, ain't that the question? I heard someone chuckle, the voice echoing across the room, each echo making the voice clearer and clearer, until I had no shred of doubt, it no other than Mr. Ara. Now it's not the time to be playing. Vest scolded, as Mr. Ara appeared, giving Vest an apologetic smile. Sorry, Mr. Ara sighed, scratching the back of his head. I was trying to make a dramatic entrance, but it's obviously not the time for that or my theme song, so I will keep it serious. I want you two to know, I hold you ill towards you. In fact, I am grateful for what Vest did for Em, saving her from that monster, but nonetheless, I am tired of these games you two are playing, I said, my eyes firmly on them. Games we are playing? Mr. Ara chuckled, I assure you, it's quite the contrary, Merlin. I looked at Ara and frowned. I barely knew him, and he was giving me nicknames. Seeing my face, he chuckled, tilting his head ponderously. Not in the nickname stage, I assume. He smiled. No matter, we can work with that. Who are you? I said, repeating my previous question, tired of this play and run, his constant jokes and other annoying habits. Well, that's a hard question to answer. Ara sighed, taking a seat on my desk, right hand on his chin. Vest sighed, giving me a sad look. It's not that we don't want to answer, we can't. Not entirely, at least, and that has nothing to do with you. Believe me, there's nothing in this world that I wouldn't give to answer you, truthfully, but things are at play, and answering your question could break the veil we are trying so hard to maintain, at least until we find a way to break it without shattering a part of what we seek to preserve. A veil? Of what? I frowned, going over what she had said, trying to break down the information into something I could understand. There was a lot to unpack there. Her words had been vague, but had a lot of meaning in them. Long story short, we are not from here, if you catch my drift. Ara sighed, his hands running down his hair, and I think for the first time since I have met him, he didn't look overly happy, but instead looked concerned. Where are you from? Another timeline? I asked, pushing the subject. You could say he nodded. Another vague answer. Is anything I know about you two even true? I asked, taking a deep breath. Part of it, Vest replied, walking towards Ara, her shape changing to that of a woman. I should have seen it coming. Our names are a lie, Ara chuckled, giving Vest a look that immediately gave away he wasn't her father. Why? I asked. The veil we are trying not to break, it's quite fragile, Ara replied. I mean, we want to break it, but not until we find a safe way to remove certain things, because once that veil comes down, everything else comes down with it. What's the veil? I asked, the subject having piqued my interest. We can't answer that, kiddo, Ara sighed, giving a small smile, one that carried a lot of emotions. I frowned. We really want to answer, Vest muttered, getting a hold of Ara's hand, but we have to avoid triggering any events that might lead to the veil breaking before its time. And talking to me about it will do just that. I sighed. Yes, any talk too specific about it can fuck our entire operation, Ara nodded. Add Ara. Vest scolded at him, for a moment, almost calling him something else. Add Ara. I said, raising an eyebrow. Well, that's, Vest muttered, seemingly trying to find a way to fix something. My name, Ara smiled, giving Vest a warm look. Adra, that's my name, for the time being that is. I sighed, what can I know about you two then? That we mean no harm, Vest stated without a hint of a lie in her words. We are simply trying to fix something, Ara, or Adra nodded, nothing more. You know it to be true, don't you? He was right. While I wasn't sure why I believed them, I did. Their words carried a weight of honesty I simply couldn't ignore, even with all the secrecy behind it. I just couldn't help but trust their words. You are right, I nodded, creating a beer. I don't know why, or how for that matter, but I believe the two of you. Maybe I'm just being manipulated. You two feel, or seem to be stronger than me, and considering the things I have seen in my life, no possibility it's too absurd, but even then. I choose to believe you are not playing with me, not in that way at the very least. We would never, Vest promised. Nonetheless, while I trust your words that you mean no harm, I will not allow you two to keep lying to my children, I stated, giving them a firm look. Whatever your goal is, I respect it, but they will not be a part of your games. I hope that is absolutely clear. Crystal Adra smiled. In fact, we wanted to propose something. A proposition. What? I asked, bringing my hands together. We can't interfere with anything in a fundamental sense, Adra said. We are not sure what can break the veil, or not yet, but after a lot of trial and error, I have come to understand the limits of what I can do, without messing with my main objective. The point being? I asked. We wish to protect your children, Vest replied, making me frown. I know you don't trust us, at least not that much. You trust our intentions, but know nothing about us, but we want to help, to the best of our abilities. Had we a choice, we would kill that little pest you are about to face, Adra chuckled, but, like I said earlier, we have to keep our interference to a minimum, at least for now. But while we can't deal with Null, for fear of damaging what we seek to preserve, we can protect what you love most, Vest said, her eyes gleaming with unwavering determination. They considered Null a little pest, which meant, my gut feeling was right on the money. These two were strong, very strong, that only made their motives all the more interesting. They wanted to break a veil, yet preserve something, but what was that veil, and what did they seek to preserve, and how was I involved in it? I was no fool, I knew I had a part to play in their quest, yet, what part that was, eluded me. Now, they were offering me the deal of the century, protection for those who I love the most, but at what cost? Did I really trust them enough to put my treasures in their hands? Or more importantly, did I really have a choice? I could reject them. Face this problem on my own, find a way to keep them safe without any external dubious help. But would that actually keep them safe at all? Even if I found a way to keep Null away from them. These two were on an entirely different level. I had no means to stop them should they want to be around the girls. Not now. Meaning the real question was, did I want them to be around them with my permission, or without it? I chuckled. No matter how I looked at their offer, even with all the downs it brought, it was too good to pass out on it. Why would you do that? Why would we not? Adra replied, giving me a smile. I sighed, returning the smile, inwardly chuckling at his response. After all, I had expected as much. We will keep them safe, no matter what Vest stated, once again, using that tone that simply made me feel she was to be trusted. What if keeping them safe eventually breaks your precious veil? I challenged. Even if I trusted them for whatever reason, I had to ask the right questions, based on what little I had gathered about them, which was, their mission was to keep the veil. A veil they seemed invested in keeping for the moment being, for the sake of preserving something they wanted. So my question was, what if keeping Emily and Nat safe comprised their mission? That's a very good question, kiddo. I like how you play around the edges of what we told you, very clever. Adra chuckled, a sad overtone lacing his entire body. So to answer your question, if that came to happen, I suppose our mission would come to an end. While keeping the veil is our top priority right now, and there's nothing more that we would like than to avoid shattering it, we won't forsake your daughters for the sake of our mission. Vest smiled, the same sad overtone taking over her, just like Adra. We promise you that much. These two, no matter how much I played around what I knew about them, they kept putting me on a new loop. Very well then, I sighed, standing up. I will entrust you two with my life, for in them, it lays my heart and soul, so don't betray me. We would never, Vest replied without a second thought. I smiled. I truly believe you wouldn't, but if you do, make sure to kill me first. Because I will stop at nothing to avenge them if push comes to shove. Edgy, but I respect it. Adra smiled. You really don't know when to joke, and when not, right? I asked, giving him a tired look. Kid, I have one gear, and one gear only, deal with it. Adra winked. I looked at Ara and frowned. I barely knew him, and he was giving me nicknames. Seeing my face, he chuckled, tilting his head ponderously. Not in the nickname stage, I assume. He smiled. No matter, we can work with that. Who are you? I said, repeating my previous question, tired of this play and run, his constant jokes and other annoying habits. Well, that's a hard question to answer. Ara sighed, taking a seat on my desk, right hand on his chin. Vest sighed, giving me a sad look. It's not that we don't want to answer, we can't. Not entirely, at least, and that has nothing to do with you. Believe me, there's nothing in this world that I wouldn't give to answer you, truthfully, but things are at play, and answering your question could break the veil we are trying so hard to maintain, at least until we find a way to break it without shattering a part of what we seek to preserve. A veil. Of what? I frowned, going over what she had said, trying to break down the information into something I could understand. There was a lot to unpack there. Her words had been vague, but had a lot of meaning in them. Long story short, we are not from here, if you catch my drift. Ara sighed, his hands running down his hair, and I think for the first time since I have met him, he didn't look overly happy, but instead looked concerned. "Where are you from? Another timeline?" I asked, pushing the subject. "You could say," he nodded. Another vague answer. "Is anything I know about you two even true?" I asked, taking a deep breath. "Part of it," Vest replied, walking towards Ara, her shape changing to that of a woman. "I should have seen it coming." "Our names are a lie," Ara chuckled, giving Vest a look that immediately gave away he wasn't her father. "Why?" I asked. "The veil we are trying not to break, it's quite fragile," Ara replied. "I mean, we want to break it, but not until we find a safe way to remove certain things, because once that veil comes down, everything else comes down with it." "What's the veil?" I asked, the subject having piqued my interest. "We can't answer that, kiddo," Ara sighed, giving a small smile, one that carried a lot of emotions. I frowned. "We really want to answer," Vest muttered, getting a hold of Ara's hand, "but we have to avoid triggering any events that might lead to the veil breaking before its time. And talking to me about it will do just that." I sighed. "Yes, any talk too specific about it can fuck our entire operation," Ara nodded. "Ad Ara." Vest scolded at him, for a moment, almost calling him something else. "Ad Ara," I said, raising an eyebrow. "Well, that's," Vest muttered, seemingly trying to find a way to fix something. "My name," Ara smiled, giving Vest a warm look. "Adra, that's my name, for the time being that is." I sighed. "What can I know about you two then?" "That we mean no harm," Vest stated without a hint of a lie in her words. "We are simply trying to fix something," Ara, or Adra, nodded. "Nothing more. You know it to be true, don't you?" He was right. While I wasn't sure why I believed them, I did. Their words carried a weight of honesty I simply couldn't ignore, even with all the secrecy behind it. I just couldn't help but trust their words. "You are right," I nodded, creating a beer. "I don't know why, or how for that matter, but I believe the two of you. Maybe I'm just being manipulated. You two feel, or seem to be stronger than me, and considering the things I have seen in my life, no possibility it's too absurd, but even then, I choose to believe you are not playing with me, not in that way at the very least." "We would never," Vest promised. "Nonetheless, while I trust your words that you mean no harm, I will not allow you two to keep lying to my children," I stated, giving them a firm look. "Whatever your goal is, I respect it, but they will not be a part of your games. I hope that is absolutely clear." Crystalladra smiled. "In fact, we wanted to propose something." "A proposition? What?" I asked, bringing my hands together. "We can't interfere with anything in a fundamental sense," Adra said. "We are not sure what can break the veil, or not yet, but, after a lot of trial and error, I have come to understand the limits of what I can do, without messing with my main objective." "The point being?" I asked. "We wish to protect your children," Vest replied, making me frown. "I know you don't trust us, at least not that much. You trust our intentions, but know nothing about us, but we want to help, to the best of our abilities. Had we a choice, we would kill that little pest you are about to face." Adra chuckled. "But, like I said earlier, we have to keep our interference to a minimum, at least for now. But while we can't deal with Null, for fear of damaging what we seek to preserve, we can protect what you love most," Vest said, her eyes gleaming with unwavering determination. They considered Null a little pest, which meant, my gut feeling was right on the money. These two were strong, very strong, that only made their motives all the more interesting. They wanted to break a veil, yet preserve something, but what was that veil, and what did they seek to preserve, and how was I involved in it? I was no fool, I knew I had a part to play in their quest, yet, what part that was, eluded me. Now, they were offering me the deal of the century, protection for those who I love the most, but at what cost? Did I really trust them enough to put my treasures in their hands? Or more importantly, did I really have a choice? I could reject them. Face this problem on my own, find a way to keep them safe without any external dubious help. But would that actually keep them safe at all? Even if I found a way to keep Null away from them. These two were on an entirely different level. I had no means to stop them should they want to be around the girls. Not now. Meaning the real question was, did I want them to be around them with my permission, or without it? I chuckled. No matter how I looked at their offer, even with all the downs it brought, it was too good to pass out on it. Why would you do that? Why would we not? Adra replied, giving me a smile. I sighed, returning the smile, inwardly chuckling at his response. After all, I had expected as much. We will keep them safe, no matter what Vest stated, once again, using that tone that simply made me feel she was to be trusted. What if keeping them safe eventually breaks your precious veil? I challenged. Even if I trusted them for whatever reason, I had to ask the right questions, based on what little I had gathered about them, which was, their mission was to keep the veil. A veil they seemed invested in keeping for the moment being for the sake of preserving something they wanted. So my question was, what if keeping Emily and Nat safe comprised their mission? That's a very good question, kiddo. I like how you play around the edges of what we told you, very clever. Adra chuckled, a sad overtone lacing his entire body. So to answer your question, if that came to happen, I suppose our mission would come to an end. While keeping the veil is our top priority right now, and there's nothing more that we would like than to avoid shattering it, we won't forsake your daughters for the sake of our mission. Vest smiled, the same sad overtone taking over her, just like Adra. We promise you that much. These two, no matter how much I played around what I knew about them, they kept putting me on a new loop. Very well then, I sighed, standing up. I will entrust you two with my life, for in them, it lays my heart and soul, so don't betray me. We would never, Vest replied without a second thought. I smiled. I truly believe you wouldn't, but if you do, make sure to kill me first. Because I will stop at nothing to avenge them if push comes to shove. Edgy, but I respect it. Adra smiled. You really don't know when to joke, and when not, right? I asked, giving him a tired look. Kid, I have one gear, and one gear only, deal with it. Adra winked. Having finished my conversation with my inner circle, each one leaving to take on a mission of their own to hasten our preparation, I teleported to Xander to try and explain the situation, not really expecting much from this travel. After all they had was my word for what I was about to explain, and even with my status as a prince of Asgard, my word didn't carry that much weight at all. Skepticism was to be expected. Granted, there were other ways to convince them. Not every step of my journey had to be diplomatic. I had the power to control their leaders, bending them to my will should it be necessary, and seeing how dire the situation was, it seemed like it would. I find your claims hard to believe, young Prince Irani, the commander of the Nova Corps said, giving me a doubtful look as I explained what was to come. Yet, they are the truth, I replied, trying to solve this matter without having to resort to other more morally questionable methods. If I could help it, I wanted to avoid taking control of the planet by force, but should it become necessary, I would without hesitation. So you say, Irani replied, as a soldier entered the room, bringing a cup of tea for her. I understand your skepticism, I really do. It must be hard to believe an eldritch-like being that you never heard of it's about to wake up and try to destroy everything in creation, but regrettably, it is nothing but the truth, I replied, summoning a cup of tea of my own, as the soldier walked away. You have to understand, young prince, we only have your word for it, and even if we chose to believe you, what you ask of us, it's a lot. Irani sighed, taking a sip of her tea, as she frowned. You ask for us to submit to you, in every sense of the word. All in exchange for protection. You have to realize that if anything, that sounds like extortion, and is grounds for war. I nodded, taking a sip of my tea, before replying, I understand how my offer sounds. If I could word it out better, I would, but that's quite literally how my power works in this specific instance. I sighed. Once I take control of something, I attain certain liberties, so to speak, amongst them, the power to control the territory on a fundamental level, giving me the capacity to treat what I control like a chat room, to give an example. Allowing me to block unwanted parties from entering the planet, as long as said parties are weaker than me. I understood that much. Irani nodded, giving me a firm calculating look. Nonetheless, we can't simply submit because you say so. Nothing would really change if you do so. I am not asking to lead your people, but to appear as the figurehead of them, I replied, refilling my tea with a thought. Let me put in terms that you might understand. Irani sighed, putting her tea down. If we, the Zandari, asked your people to submit to us, even if that submission was nothing more than a facade, all in exchange of protection, for something we knew of but had no solid proof of, would you submit? I chuckled, shaking my head. Politics were really not my thing. I see your point, a very valid one at that. But you are talking about pride more than nothing else now. A government must protect the integrity of its people, that includes our pride, Irani replied. I wish there was a way to show you I wasn't lying. Heck, the fact I am taking the political approach to this should be enough to prove I mean well, because if I wanted to, I could level this entire planet with but a thought. And before you jump on that comment, that's not a threat, it's a fact. I have power beyond your imagination, I sighed, giving the commander a warm smile as her gaze hardened. I am more than a prince, more than a human, though to be completely honest, I'm not quite sure I was a human at any point to begin with. Most recently, I ascended, joining the Celestials. I know you are aware of them, most advanced civilizations are. I was not aware one could ascend to their ranks. In fact, I was quite sure that was impossible, Irani replied, her tone even but calculating. You are absolutely right, it is impossible to ascend to their ranks, I nodded. By normal means, that is, I smiled, creating an illusion around us to show her how I had come to join the celestial ranks. What is this? Irani asked, looking around in confusion. Seeing her face, I immediately realized I was currently the only one seeing something coherent in the illusion I had made, coming to the conclusion her mind was simply processing the simple aspects of the assimilation, showing nothing but a random array of colors and shapes that for her brain had no discernible pattern to make something of. Meaning that to show her what I wanted, I had to adapt to her biological limitations. The seed that was within my planet, I replied, changing the scenery to something she could comprehend. Why are you showing me this? Irani asked, now being able to see what I wanted her to see. Well, I wanted to show you how I became a celestial, I replied, changing the scenery once again, to the part I was absorbing Tiamat. You assimilated the seed, Irani said in realization after a few seconds of watching the event unfold. I did, I nodded. The Celestials are beings not to be trifled with, Irani said, giving me a hard look. At the slightest insult to their cosmic balance, they seek ruthless retribution. Libraries have been filled with stories about their wrath. I'm aware, I nodded. Your actions in this illusion, if they are true, are the greatest offense anyone has ever done to their kind in all of recorded history, Irani stated, her tone cold. Normally, you would be right, but... I smiled, changing the scenery once again, this time showing her the conversation between Tiamat and I, editing my parts as they were not necessary. As you can see, Tiamat himself decided not to emerge out of love for the life of the planet that had nurtured him, giving himself willingly to me, which in turn saved me from having hostile relations with the Celestials, who upon learning of Tiamat's decision, welcomed me to their ranks. Do you have any solid proof of all of this? Irani asked after a moment. I do, plenty. I can even call one of the Celestials here if that helps, I replied, giving her a quick nod as I dissipated the illusion. I see, Irani sighed, taking hold of her cup of tea between her two hands. Nonetheless, while this revelation gives you a bigger sense of validity in your claims, we the Xandari can't accept your terms. Not even if the Celestials came here to tell you about the threat themselves? I asked, frowning at her. Not even then, Irani nodded, taking a calming sip of her tea. Don't take my answer as a comment on their power. I am fully aware the Celestials are beings of tremendous power, and if you are indeed one of them, you, like them, certainly have the power to destroy us without much difficulty. But regardless of that, Xander has never submitted, higher power or not. We have remained independent through everything. You would risk everything on pride? I replied, my tone cold. It's more than pride, but yes, Irani nodded, firm on her resolve. Even if I were to say yes, simply for the sake of our people's future, that would get you nothing, I'm afraid. The council, the generals, and all the other higher-ups in the Nova Empire would oppose my decision right away, effectively voiding it. I sighed. It seems then we have come to an impasse. I'm afraid we have, Irani sighed, giving me a soft nod. However, this is not to say we won't help when the time comes. I chuckled at her comment. Help when the time comes, that was some wishful thinking. In the great scheme of things, their power was inconsequential on the upcoming the war if they didn't join under my control. Anything outside that control I was seeking was a liability more than a perk, as anything outside that could and would fall under Null's horde, becoming an instrument to be used against me. If all the higher-ups were to accept, would the Xandarians accept me? I asked. That would never happen, Irani replied. Just humor me for a bit, will ya? I chuckled. Irani sighed. If that were to happen, yes, all of Xander would trust their democratically selected leaders to have made the correct decision based on the interest of Xander as a whole. There would be confusion, sure, but ultimately, they would come to accept it. Good, I was afraid I had to alter more than a few selected. I sighed in relief, happy I would not have to brainwash an entire planet. What you do? Irani stopped mid-sentence, her eyes widening in horrific realization. You wouldn't. This is a war I fully intend to win, I replied, smiling at her. Sacrifices must be made, for the sake of all. Confirming her worst fears, Irani moved to press a button under the meeting table, possibly trying to call someone to come to her aid. That won't work, I said, taking a sip of my tea. For everyone besides us, we are still talking, I chuckled. The magic of illusions. As for the button, well, it works, it's just not sending any signals, or rather, I'm not allowing any signals to leave this room, so, same thing I suppose. You claim to seek the salvation of the universe, yet what you are about to do shows a darker side of you, Irani replied, slamming her hands on the table. Only a monster would rely on such tactics. I'm aware, I nodded, surprised at the lack of feelings I had about the entire situation, but sometimes the universe doesn't need a hero, it needs a monster. Without another word, I entered her mind, and started working. I was behind schedule as it was. It took me around 5 minutes or so to take full control of Xander, in the end, not even having to reveal myself to the Xandarians as their new leader, as the pleasant realization that having control of all the leaders in the planet was more than enough to satisfy my system and what my power considered as a conquered territory. With that new bit of information about the whole conquering thing, things had become considerably easier. I now simply had to take control of a few selected beings across the universe, effectively taking hold of problematic planets and species before Null did. The fewer materials the King of the Void had to work with on his hands, the better it would be for us in the long run. Sure, ideally, the best scenario would be for me to take hold of the entire universe to completely nullify his horde. Sadly, that was simply not plausible in the least. Not only the universe was infinitely vast, but taking control of that many planets would tax me a lot, weakening me. And when it came to Null, I didn't have the luxury to lose any power, or stretch my focus more than I already was. So, instead of stretching myself thin across the universe, I had decided to take control of a selected few, those that I considered possible threats should they fall to Null and his horde. The list was the following: the Sovereign, the Kree, the Skrull, the Sheetori, the Shi'ar, the Brood, the Technarchy, the Sakarans, the Flora Colossi. So far, according to an extensive search on my library that took a few hours to complete, those were the most problematic planets should they fall into Null's hands, at least in the near universe, be it because of their technology, or natural abilities, or a mix of both. Every single one on the list was a possible threat. Some more than others. Time to democratically become the hidden ruler of 9 civilizations. At the same time I sighed, teleporting to the first one on the list, the Sovereign. Thor Odinson POV. My journey to crown my sworn brother as the king of the 9 realms had started pretty easy. Without much fight, Eitri, the king of dwarfs, had accepted my proposition, saying he trusted my judgment, and his once former student, Alex, as well. However, the easy part of my journey had sadly ended there. The moment I had left Nidavellir for Vanaheim, with a smile on my face, eager to continue on my journey, I soon found out things would not go like they had gone with Eitri at all. I realized this as soon as I started explaining the situation to the people of Vanaheim, with their gazes meeting mine with a lot of doubt. I couldn't blame them. The whole situation was hard to believe, nevertheless, I would not give up at this minor setback, so trying my best I determinedly reassured them that there was nothing to worry about, that what I was offering was merely a temporary arrangement we were looking to make to keep everyone safe. For the next following hours, I spoke with the leaders of Vanaheim, trying my best to come to an agreement with them. "Are you sure this man is to be trusted?" I smiled, almost insulted at his comment. Was my brother to be trusted? Of course he was. I would place my beating heart on his hands, and not question if he crushed it, for I would trust without a doubt he had good reasons to kill me. Without a doubt, I replied, without a hint of doubt in my tone. I see, then we will trust your judgment. I beamed. 2 realms down, 6 more to go. Hela Odins.her POV. Something was wrong. I could feel it in the air. The flags of war were being raised. Normally, I would be excited at the prospect of a war on the horizon. I mean, how could I not? It was my element. I thrived in the chaos that war provided me. I relished the bloodshed it brought with mad, sickening delight. But instead of feeling like I wanted to feel, I felt troubled. For the first time in all my long life, I felt anxious at the possibility of war. It was laughable, really, on more than one level, that I, Hela, the fearless goddess of death, would feel this way, and yet Here I was, terrified of what was to come, without even knowing what was to come. I suppose I didn't need to know, after all, one does not require to see the threat to know there's one. And while I couldn't see any threats with my own eyes, every cell in my body knew with certainty there was a threat ahead like nothing I had seen before. I wonder what though, I sighed. You seem scared, Loki grinned, walking towards me. As a matter of fact, I am, I replied with a quick nod, without a care. I was not one to hide, pretending that I was above feeling fear. Unlike others, I embraced fear, for fear made us stronger, fear made us understand our own mortality and weakness and how to surpass it. Every warrior worth a damn had experienced fear more than once in their life, and those that said they had not, were nothing more than pathetic excuses for a warrior hiding beneath a skirt of false bravado. I wasn't expecting that answer, Loki replied. I suppose you weren't, I sighed, pondering about what was to come. What troubles you, if I might ask? Loki asked. Are you worried about me, little brother? I asked, teasingly. As much as I can be, Loki rolled his eyes, scoffing. I simply wish to know what scares you, because frankly, until today, I assumed you were scared of nothing, not even Alex, or Thor for that matter. Why would I fear them? I chuckled. I know what my destiny is should I ever face them as I am now, so what's there to fear? Death. Please, only cowards fear their end. That doesn't answer the question, Loki pressed. No, it doesn't, I nodded, giving him a small smile. I take it you won't answer, Loki sighed. There isn't much to answer, to be honest, I admitted, taking a deep breath, before continuing. All I know is, something is about to happen, something big, what or when? I shrugged. I don't have the slightest idea, but whatever it's about to happen, will drown the cosmos in darkness like nothing we have ever seen. I see, Loki chuckled, his eyes gleaming with stupidity. I know what you are thinking, Loki, I sighed, putting my hand on his shoulder, but this is not an opportunity to try and scheme. I know you are not one to listen, and frankly I don't care, but for the first time in your life, you must listen. What is about to come is beyond our power, beyond our personal desires, so if you have any sense of self-preservation or a modicum of intelligence, heed my warning, and don't try anything. For once, stay back. You are more frightened than I anticipated, Loki muttered, his eyes gazing over me in a calculating fashion. I sighed. I had done what I could, my good deed of the year. If the imbecile wanted to ignore my warnings, he was more than welcome. Do as you please, Loki, but know that from this point on, you walk towards your grave out of your own accord. With that said, I walked out of the room, leaving a silent Loki behind. As I stepped into my office, having completed the mission I had set out myself to do, I was greeted by the image of the Ancient One, sitting on my desk, reading some papers with a trained gaze, before noticing my presence and waving at me. Mr. Walker. Not that I mind, but why are you here? I asked, walking towards the chair that laid in front of my desk before taking a seat. I was waiting for you, the Ancient One replied with a quizzical smile, as if it was obvious. But why? I asked, moving my hand around a bit to emphasize. Earth, it's almost within your hands, the Ancient One replied, tapping her fingers on my desk. Italian, not bad, I prefer German-made desks, they tend to last longer. I chuckled, shaking my head ever so slightly. While your choices about desks are certainly a topic I would like to discuss on a later date, I am currently quite interested in the other thing. The Ancient One smiled. I suppose we can always talk about desks in less challenging times. Now, about Earth, I am happy to inform, I have managed to deal with most of the minor organizations we had on the list, with most of them agreeing to bend the knee, so to speak. Which meant, the big players of Earth were still a problem. How many organizations are left? I asked. 8, the Ancient One replied. Very well, that should be easy enough, I nodded, satisfied with the number. For the remaining 8, I will grant you control of my golems, to speed things up. The Ancient One sighed, pressing her index finger upon her lips. You suggest I intimidate them, and should that not work, I force them, is that correct? I looked at her and nodded. We talked about this. While not the path I ideally would have wanted to take, we have not much of a choice. I know, the Ancient One sighed, rubbing her temples. How was your mission in Xander anyway? They rejected my offer, I replied, bringing both of my hands together, so I acted accordingly, by taking control of their government. I see, the Ancient One replied, seemingly unfazed by my answer. I smiled. I expected you to sound more disappointed. I have morals, Mr. Walker, just like you, and like you, I don't let them blind me or moronically guide me, at least, not in the face of what we are about to face, the Ancient One replied, giving me a warm smile. For the sake of the greater good, we all must make sacrifices, even if those sacrifices go against our very selves. Wise words, I replied. I'm not called the Ancient One just because I am old, Mr. Walker, the Ancient One winked. I grinned. But you are though. Mr. Walker, has nobody ever told you how rude it is to talk about a lady's age? The Ancient One gasped, pretending to be emotionally hurt. I rolled my eyes at her lackluster performance. Well, now everyone's a critic, the Ancient One sighed. Now that I think about it, need I remind you, Mr. Walker, your girlfriend is a few hundred years older than me. I wonder what she might think if I told her you considered my age to be old. I reckon it would break her poor maiden heart. I chuckled, before breaking into a fit of laughter. Have you been taking improved classes? Not really, your daughters mostly, the Ancient One chuckled, and movies, I suppose, as the young ones nowadays say. They got me hooked. Fair enough, I nodded, standing up, before walking to the door. I had just remembered, I had something to do. Where are you going? The Ancient One asked, confused as to why I was leaving my own office. I have an errand to run, and I intend to run it before I forget or something else gets my attention, and by get I mean demands my attention, I replied, before teleporting to the tombs of Asgard. Once I had found a spacious enough room in the tombs of Asgard, I started to work on creating a portal to Dormammu's dimension by carving runes on the floor with my index finger. My intentions were simple, creating a portal stable enough for at least 2 travels, and one that didn't allow the power-hungry god from entering this dimension. What can I say? The last thing I wanted was fighting 2 evil entities at the same time. Granted, for one all I needed was a shiny green rock, aka, the time stone, to defeat him, but still, even if defeating him was easy, I wanted to avoid any unnecessary altercations, at least for now. So, for the next few minutes, I focused on carving the runes required for the portal, while thinking how I would go about saving the Ancient's one soul, or the part of it, inside Dormammu's dimension. I guess I can steal strange strategy, I amused at the thought, imagining the fun I would have bargaining with Dormammu. I guess I will do that, sounds fun enough. I chuckled, carving the last rune. Runes finally ready, I stood from the ground, giving work one last look, to verify everything was correct, which it was. So once having confirmed that, I activated the runes, and waited, as a portal opened in front of me to a dimension one could only describe as a meth addict's dream. I feel like I should get a drug test after this, I chuckled, at my own joke, while jumping into the portal, closing the same a few moments after. Now to find Dormammu, it shouldn't be hard. You came. Well, that was easy. I did. I replied, imitating his tone as I turned around to face him. Finding the pleasant surprise, he looked exactly like he looked in the Doctor Strange the movie. Dormammu, Destroyer of Worlds, LV 1994. Stronger than Arishem, by quite a bit. Interesting. What do you seek here? Alex Dormammu growled, circling around me like a giant snake. Well, seeing as you are being quite a pleasant host at the moment, I suppose I can answer your question. I smiled, as he came to a full stop in front of me. I wish to retrieve the Ancient One's soul, the part of it that you have, at least. I see, Dormammu replied, his tone short and cold, as he summoned what I was looking for in front of me. For the taking, take it, be gone then. I blinked. Well, this was unexpected. I'll be honest with you, I chuckled, grabbing the Ancient One's soul, storing it within me for the time being. I expected a fight or something. Do you really wish to fight me? Dormammu asked, his eyes staring into mine in a challenging manner. I chuckled, my eyes going over to his level. Dormammu, Destroyer of Worlds, LV 1994. A level weaker than me. Fighting him would offer me perspective, and besides, that power he had was being wasted on him. I smiled, my eyes still fixed on his level, while suddenly feeling somewhat hungry. I looked into Dormammu's eyes, my mind almost completely blank, all of my thoughts crashing and breaking into waves of confusion and desire that didn't allow me to form a single coherent thought, as my entire body vibrated ever so slightly, half singing, half crying in hunger, famished at the sight of Dormammu and his power. I wanted his power. I craved it. Warning. I walked towards him, almost unable to put one foot in front of the other out of sheer excitement, as I sank into the feeling that swallowed everything around me, letting my hunger guide me. Warning. Falling into an abnormal state, cosmic hunger. 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 You seem to be troubled, Dormammu commented with a small chuckle, floating around me as I stopped walking towards him, my mind clearing for the briefest of moments. Warning. Falling into an abnormal state, cosmic hunger. I gasped, bringing both of my hands to my throat, trying to hold into something. This hunger. This feeling of emptiness and desire was like nothing I had ever felt before. It clouded my mind. It guided my actions in ways I would never permit. Cosmic hunger has begun. Cosmic hunger is cancelled due to will. Cosmic hunger has begun. Cosmic hunger is cancelled due to will. Cosmic hunger has begun. Cosmic hunger is cancelled due to will. Cosmic hunger has begun. Cosmic hunger is cancelled due to will. Now that I think about it, this might be the best time to end you, Dormammu said, whispering each word out with sickening delight. I said nothing, baring my teeth at him, waves of cosmic power exploding out of my body, threatening to end everything, at any given moment, as I bellowed with rage in a roar that shook his entire dimension, ripping across the nothingness of his realm like thunder. Dormammu froze for a moment, his incorporeal being oscillating irregularly as he took a step back, without even realizing a part of him was pushing him to flee as he stared at me in shock. Cosmic hunger has begun. Cosmic hunger is cancelled due to will. I could see it in his eyes. Dread and rejection blooming within him at the same time, his mind exploding in an array of emotions new to him, as he couldn't conceive the fact he had felt fear because of me a few moments ago. It was inconceivable for him, an impossibility. Yet, even at this fervent denial of what had happened, the part of his brain that didn't operate guided by pride, but out of baser instincts screamed at him to run. Cosmic hunger has begun. Cosmic hunger is cancelled due to will. I laughed, clutching my head in pain, as I stared at him. It would be wise for you to leave, as it is right now, I can barely contain myself. My voice came out broken, like that of a man on the brink of falling into the abyss, a mad delirious overtone lacing each and every single word. Cosmic hunger has begun. Cosmic hunger is cancelled due to will. Dormammu said nothing, his own instincts and desires conflicting within him, creating a turmoil of emotions that showed on his ever-changing face. He wanted to fight me, to strike me, to kill me for insulting him the way I was, yet for all his rage, his instincts were pushing him towards the opposite path. Cosmic hunger has begun. Cosmic hunger is cancelled due to will. I grinned, the pain that assaulted my body and mind with throbbing anger, still present but slowly becoming more manageable. Thanks to the continuous strain of your mind and body, your wis, definite, and vit increased by 55. Cosmic hunger has begun. Cosmic hunger is cancelled due to will. I laughed, much to Dormammu's shock, who once again took a step back without even realizing it. I was adapting. I could feel it. The pain and hunger that afflicted me, shattering my mind and body ravenously, with each broken piece this affliction left behind coming back stronger. Cosmic hunger has begun. Cosmic hunger is cancelled due to will. Cosmic hunger has begun. Cosmic hunger is cancelled due to will. Cosmic hunger has begun. Cosmic hunger is cancelled due to will. Thanks to the continuous strain of your mind and body, your wis, definite, and vit increased by 50. I was glad. Glad this had happened before now. Luck was really on my side this time, for had this happened in front of the King in Black, had I lost control of my bearings in front of him because of it, I would have died before I even managed to realize what had happened. I was truly glad. Cosmic hunger has begun. Cosmic hunger is cancelled due to will. Cosmic hunger has begun. Cosmic hunger is cancelled due to will. Cosmic hunger has begun. Cosmic hunger is cancelled due to will. Thanks to the continuous strain of your mind and body, your wis, definite, and vit increased by 150. Thanks to the continuous strain of your mind and body, your wis, definite, and vit increased by 155. Thanks to the continuous strain of your mind and body, your wis, definite, and vit increased by 159. Thanks to the continuous strain of your mind and body, your wis, definite, and vit increased by 189. Thanks to the continuous strain of your mind and body, your wis, definite, and vit increased by 197. Cosmic hunger is cancelled due to will. Cosmic hunger has begun. Thanks to the continuous strain of your mind and body, your wis, definite, and vit increased by 250. Thanks to the continuous strain of your mind and body, your wis, definite, and vit increased by 361. Cosmic hunger has begun. Cosmic hunger is cancelled due to will. Cosmic hunger has begun. Cosmic hunger is cancelled due to will. Thanks to the continuous strain of your mind and body, your wis, definite, and vit increased by 5257. Cosmic hunger affliction negated. A new skill has been created by an specific action, Indomitable Will. Indomitable Will, passive, LV max. Through the course of unthinkable challenges, the user has forged his mind through pain and suffering, and through it all, he has remained true to himself, developing an unnaturally strong willpower, enabling through unshakable determination to be immune to all forms of temptation, such as subordination, telepathy, mind control, and seduction. Not only that, but through will, and will alone, the user can now face great physical pain and psychological trauma and will refuse to surrender no matter how much the odds are stacked against them, possibly up to the point of cheating death and pushing themselves past their own limitations. A new skill has been created by a specific action: corruption immunity. Corruption immunity, passive, LV max. The willpower coursing through the user is such. The user is now immune to corruption and all corruption-based powers as long as the user is aware of them. A new skill has been created by a specific action: accelerated development. Accelerated development, passive, LV max. By pushing your body to the brink of shattering, you have evolved through the pain. With this skill, the user can improve their natural abilities far faster and to a greater extent or beyond the limitations of other members of their species. This skill applies at a genetic level, allowing the body to keep up with the user's own rapidly developing skills /physical attributes, and at an intellectual level, to which their mind /mental capabilities can develop beyond their normal limits. This power also allows the user to awaken any latent abilities within them as long as certain requirements are met. Plus 1500% EXP gains with skills. Plus 1500% EXP gains with stats. Plus 1500% EXP gains with crafting. A new skill has been created by a specific action: limitation transcendence. Limitation transcendence, passive, LV max. The user can now overcome their limitations and weaknesses, whether personal, from their species, or inherent to their other powers, becoming either more resistant or completely immune to said weaknesses. This can be accomplished through a vast array of ways, forcing natural evolution. I panted, my body healing itself at a rapid rate, the pain from a moment ago finally gone as several notifications appeared in front of me. I chuckled, elated at the sight of the notifications and what they said. I had gained a lot, more than I expected by simply fighting an affliction. Then again, the affliction had been incredibly violent in nature, damaging me not only in mind but in body, taking around half of my HP during its short but painful lifespan. Still here? I said, noticing Dormammu floating a few meters away from me in complete silence, in a trance of sorts. My voice at first didn't seem to reach him, but after a few seconds, he snapped back to the real world, glaring at me, "Leave, and never come back." I smiled at his reaction, deciding that for now, I would leave him be. After all, he had been kind enough not to disturb me while I purged the side effects of my own gluttony. Granted, it had been out of fear, but credit where it is due. Until later, Dormammu, I waved at him, feeling a sense of tranquility I had never felt before washing over me, as I opened the portal back to Asgard, leaving a very agitated Dormammu behind. Tranquility washing over me, I exited Dormammu's dimension, going back through the portal I had created, finding myself once again in the tombs of Asgard. I smiled, fully appreciating the weight I had taken off my back with this mission of mine. I hadn't realized it until now, but absorbing those beings had been weighing on me, giving me power while taking a part of me at the same time. I chuckled, looking at the runes I had carved a few minutes ago on the floor as something akin to gratitude blossomed within me, before turning away, erasing my creation with a thought. I wonder if spa days feel like this to others. I mused over the thought, opening a portal back to my office, where the Ancient One was waiting for me. I was starting to worry. You took longer than I had anticipated, the Ancient One sighed in relief, as I walked towards her with a big smile. Well, I had a few complications here and there, nothing to worry about though, I replied, extending my right hand towards her, palm out, bringing the part of her soul I had retrieved from Dormammu's dimension. At this simple act on my part, time seemed to come to a complete halt, with the Ancient One looking at my hand, at her soul, without a single word coming out of her mouth. She seemed lost, scared even. Her eyes, refusing to believe what she was seeing. Her entire self, not daring to wish in fear of losing what was within her grasp. The emotions she was feeling were confusing and powerful, to the point, I didn't need her to tell me what she was feeling. There was no need for her to tell me, I could see it, feel it, in the way her manner trembled in an outburst of emotions she had bottled up long before even meeting me. I smiled, summoning a cup full of tea, her favorite kind, before laying the cup in front of her while saying, I know I'm quite the sight to behold, a big fat 10 in the scale of hotness, but what would Sif think? My completely out of subject comment / joke caught her attention, making her laugh, a genuine beautiful laugh full of emotions, the kind that it's highly contagious. I won't take your laugh as a comment about how sexy I am, I chuckled, giving her a quick wink. Definitely a 10, Sif is a very lucky girl, she replied between chuckles and giggles, as her eyes teared up. Seeing this, I rushed to her side, putting a reassuring hand on her shoulders, as my other hand held her soul. I can't even begin to thank you for this, I never thought I would. That, my destiny was sealed. I had made peace with it, and you. Her words broke up more and more as she tried to talk to convey what she was feeling to me, until all she could utter were stuttering wet sounds. Without a word, I brought my arms around her, hugging her as gently as I could, feeling the hot tears that streamed down her face running down my shirt, as she grabbed into my shirt like a child, squeezing her eyelids shut in the hope her tears would stop. I sat there for a few moments letting her vent, feeling her choppy breathing and watery eyes close against my chest. I must apologize, she muttered, not daring to look at me, this is rather unbecoming of me. I smiled, patting her on the head ever so gently, no one is above feeling, you should know that. She chuckled, breaking the hug with a playful push to my chest as she wiped her eyes. Since when are you the wise one here, Mr. Walker? She asked. Well, I had a good teacher, I shrugged, grabbing the cup of tea I had summoned for her, to once again try and give it to her. Tea. Most definitely, she nodded, grabbing the cup from my hands with a smile. So, soul now, or after tea? I asked, summoning a cup of the very same tea for myself. Index finger pressed upon her lips, she looked at the cup of tea that rested on her hands, steam gently coming out of the cup, inviting her ever so tenderly to take a sip of its contents. She smiled, putting the cup on my desk, before saying, I would very much like to be whole before enjoying this wonderful cup of tea you have given me, if you don't mind, that is. I smiled, once again summoning her soul out. I would be delighted. Thor Odinson POV. 4 realms ready, 4 to go. This mission was taking me longer than I had anticipated. Stupid politics, stupid people clinging to power like it was the only thing that mattered. I really wasn't fit to be a king. I hated this. I hated having to convince others about something that in every sense only benefited them, just because they didn't want to feel powerless, just because they wanted to preserve their role, their power, a power they directly associated with the crown above their heads, even though that, with or without the crown, they were just as powerless. A crown would give them no power. A crown would not protect their people in their time of need. A crown would not feed their young in the pains of war. a crown would do nothing for them but feed their ego. The more I talked with those I had promised to convince for my brother's cause, for everyone's cause, the more I came to realize that most of them only cared and sought to preserve their status, even in the face of imminent destruction, letting their unwarranted sense of hubris guide them. It was laughable, really. Them, brushing off nulls coming like a simple nuisance, like a chore they won't deal with until the time comes. Because in their tiny minds, what threatened me, Asgard, and anyone else in their little world, didn't threaten them. I would no longer waste my time on them. They didn't deserve a breath out of my mouth. They didn't deserve a second of my attention. They weren't worthy of it. So, if they wanted to die a pointless death, it was their choice. I would respect it. That, however, didn't mean I would forsake the people they swore to protect. After all, there was more than one way to get a crown, and as the All-Father, I would do whatever was necessary to protect those in need. That's it for the video, guys. Hope you like the video. Like, share and subscribe. Also tell me in the comment section which kind of fanfiction you would like to watch next, or if you have any recommendation.